Welcome everyone to B&H. So excited to be back. This is my 5th or 6th time being here speaking, and every time I've been kind of changing it up. So I teach a lot of Lightroom, and I started teaching some new stuff. So this presentation is the first time you guys are going to actually see this. No one has seen this yet. So we're going to be talking a little bit about how to get really high impact images with lighter gear while you're on the road. So a lot of the gear I used before was pretty large, and I'd have to carry a huge backpack around. So we're going to talk about how to do this, and I want to thank Tom and Panasonic for sponsoring this. So big round of applause for them for bringing me out here. Okay, so a little bit about me, and then we'll get into it. So I've always loved photography. I've shot since I'm about 12 years old. I wasn't very good. Took really bad pictures, blurry pictures, everything. I love macro and little tiny things. When I went back and scanned all that stuff, I was disappointed, and I started pushing myself a little bit further to take better pictures. My dad gave me his Pentax Spotomatic film camera, and I really started getting more serious about stuff, but I still didn't really learn stuff. I always really kind of wanted his Canon A1. I had a little mishap when I screwed it on. I bent some little things in there and was never given it. So they bought me a Nikon DSLR. I don't know if it was out of spite or what they wanted to do, but they wouldn't get me the Canon. So I got a Nikon film camera and shot that for a long time. And right now I'm shooting Lumix cameras, much lighter, smaller. So this is a GX8 and a GH4 that I have, and I'm loving the results that I get with the images. I can carry this around all day today and I won't be beat. So enough about me. This photo is by my friend Joel Grimes, so he took it as a test shot, so he's got some amazing test shots out there. Goals for my lecture today for you guys to come away from everything here is to help you guys think outside the box a little bit, to really kind of open your minds, think a little bit outside the box, not be so worried about the gear that you have. Take amazing images. Stay energized, get out there, be energized, and just, again, take amazing images. That's the goal here, is to take great images. Most of our images are consumed on social media now, so you don't need all of this big, heavy gear. Help you downsize your gear and what you bring, not just cameras, but also tripods and other things. I used to use a lot of different neck straps. I hate them. I live in Arizona, and they tear my neck up because it's so hot up there. So I use different things to keep stuff a little bit safer. It's down here. It's not bouncing, hitting my belt and everything. And help you step up your photography game so that you're really just on, all the time. So let's get going. Tip 1, research. So before you even leave to travel, do your research. You really want to go and research everything. The more time you spend researching, the better your results are going to be. If you just kind of show up somewhere, whether it's New York City or the Grand Canyon, you're going to maybe get a shot, you're maybe not. But if you go and start to put the research, and we're going to spend a little bit of time on this, you can really start to see your success rise of how your images are turning out. A couple different forms of research. I really start at Google Images. So I search mine, so I have the rights for all of them. So I just search my name on there. So what I start to do is look up where I want to go. So I usually don't search my name. I'll search Grand Canyon, and I'll start to go through and see what I like, see what I don't like as well. That's just as important. Where I don't want to go, where there's going to be a lot of people, so I avoid those areas or find something a little bit more unique. Then after I start searching the locations, I start searching for compositions, so I can start to build my own views, because I don't really want to duplicate someone else's work. I want to create my own images, and a lot of these places have been shot billions of times. Antelope Canyon here has been shot, there's thousands of people in there an hour. So I don't always want to create something like that I've seen before. And then what I do is I start to plan for lighting. What time of day, what time of year, what season do I want to be at certain places? Obviously snow, you can't get that in the summer in Arizona, but that's actually shot in Arizona up in the north. So I start to plan out what the image is going to look like and what time of year and what light is going to hit it. Do I want sunrise, sunset, stuff like that? So research more than you think you need to. So not just your composition, not just the things we spoke about. Stuff changes. So a lot of the pictures you saw in there, they're gone. So oh, I don't have the little tree. So there's a little tree up in Monument Valley. They cut it down and they built a campground there. I got beautiful images there. It was a go-to place, but it changes. Things fall down. Weather changes. You have a lot of changes that are always going on. So we go up to Joshua Tree every year for a workshop, and I had these perfect trees. I went, I found them all. They were amazing. Go there to shoot them. I'm like, where are my trees? They had died in between the 12 months when I was there before and later. So I'm constantly having to do more research because stuff is evolving, stuff is changing. So weather's changing as well. Oh, I thought we were doing a dance number. All right, so some online research I suggest, obviously websites, local websites, if you could find websites that are local to the area, books, magazines, blogs. There's tons of blogs of other photographers that are going there. And YouTube is a huge one. We're live streaming right now, so stuff like this is great to figure out what's gonna work for you. When there's migrations as well. So this is up in Alaska. I was just up in Alaska, and the little babies on this actually live in the feathers. They're like in there. So they'd hop out and then they'd climb back up on the mom's back. And if you don't know where to find them, when they're there, you know, and sometimes that's talking to the locals to see what's going on in the local area. All right, more on research. Don't let the research stop before. When I get to a location, I look at postcards. They're usually really bad pictures, but they're gonna show me what's important. So I'm not really looking for the actual images on them. I'm looking at where to go. And those iconic spots are great. Again, I don't want to duplicate the shot. I just want to kind of look at it and see what I like, see what works out. And there's tons of different postcards. Again, I wish I could get some of my images on them, but they're usually really old pictures, I find, and they just keep duplicating these postcards. I check out the galleries. So I go to photo galleries if I have the time. And then you usually find really nice work, and try to do your research as you're going through the galleries to see, talk to the gallery curators, know a lot about all of the images, where they were taken, the artists. They have a whole story behind them. I was up in Lake Tahoe, and we were just kind of getting some information from the gallery to know where to go in Lake Tahoe. I'd never been there, and we're only there for a day, so I didn't have a lot of time. We hit a gallery, looked at some postcards, and found a couple great spots. The weather didn't cooperate, but I know for next time where to go. All right, on to research while you're on the road. Apps. So apps are a super, super important part of my workflow. Google Earth. So I can look at these places before I even leave my house. So I can go and do all my research, print stuff out, look at stuff. I can see views that are on, like the Google car does, where you can actually see everything, see the way light hits stuff. Photo Pills is awesome. That one's for iPhone only, or TPE if you don't have an iPhone. And I'm not going to attempt to say that. I can never say that. So the photographers, so you can download those and see which way the light actually hits where you're going to go. So you put a date in, you put a time, and you move it around and you drop a pin, and that pin will let you see which way the light's gonna hit, where the sun's gonna rise, where the moon's gonna go, which way the stars are gonna be, so you can get shots perfectly lined up and know what date and time to be at the arch that the sun pops in there. I use Dark Sight Finder. I don't know if that's an app or just online, but you can do it on your phone online, and I can find out where the stars are going to be and where there's a dark area. So that's why we choose Joshua Tree when we do our workshop for nighttime photography, because it's very dark there. There's not a lot of lights all around. I do a ton of storm chasing, and I use radar scope to see where the storms are coming, where they're going, and tide charts so you don't get washed out, or if you're there at low tide. Again, this arch can disappear when it's high tide and it'll just look like a rock. So you want to know these things before you get there. All right, on to tip 2. You have to, why am I using all these apps? I want to be at the right place at the right time. So stuff like this doesn't really happen by accident. Sometimes it does. This one was by accident, so it's not a great example. I was actually doing a time lapse here with my GH4, and I happened to catch a lightning bolt, which is uncommon because it's daytime. So without a lightning trigger, you really can't get that in daytime. So I did happen to catch one, and it just turned out awesome. But that rarely happens. Most of the shots that we all shoot are intentional. So you want to have these apps so you're in the right place at the right time, and that you can track good light. So by good light, I mean when the light is lighting everything up, when the mountains are glowing purple, whatever it may be that you're looking for, I want to find that light or the storm. So that's half the battle. If you can be in the right place at the right time, everything else hopefully falls into place. So then I start to compose. I look at the scene. So I'm in the right place at the right time, and I want to know which way I want to point my camera to get the images that I'm looking for. So in this case, I wanted a strong foreground element. So I found these huge saguaros. You're not going to find these in New York. They're very rare here. And I knew which way the stars were going to be going, and it wasn't time for Milky Way, so I just was like, I'm going to make the stars blur out and do a bunch of exposures. So basically, I composed my shot to have these in the foreground, have some mid-ground with the lights on the ground, and we lit those up, light painted them, and then had the stars just move in the background. And just kind of let that magic happen, let everything just kind of come together. And it looks like it's a difficult shot, but it's really not. It's super easy to do stuff like this. And of course, be creative. Again, no one else really has this shot. I went out to the middle of nowhere, I found 3 random saguaros and jumped on it and shot that shot. So that's like a once in a lifetime shot. No one's going to be able to really duplicate that. Can they go to those same 3 saguaros? Yeah, but it's going to be a different lighting. They're going to use different lights. They're going to compose it differently. I had friends there standing right next to me, and we all have different shots. So definitely be creative. So even if you're at the right place, at the right time, stuff doesn't always fall into place. Nature has a huge part in all of this. I've hiked out to the wave 3 times. So the first time there was no clouds, and we decided we were going to stay late and shoot pictures. So as soon as sunset went down, guess what came in? Clouds. So then we didn't get any star shots either. And it's not an easy hike to get out here. It's actually a pretty unsafe and difficult hike. There's no shade. Even in the winter when I've been there, it's super hot to get out there. There's no real trail, and there's no trail markers. So what do? I did it again. Even though it was difficult, I hopped back in the saddle, did it again, and then it was too cloudy. And then the third time I went, there was no clouds until this one decided to pop up. We're actually laying, this kind of comes in this way and goes into this kind of skateboard pool looking area. So we were laying around the corner in the shade, bummed out that there was no clouds again, and there was little tiny cloud, probably smaller than that little piece right there. And it just started blowing up right in front of us. And we just ran around the corner and the cloud was there. And it just fit in perfectly. The composition was already there. We knew the shot we wanted, so nature came through that time, so I luckily don't have to hike out there again. But it was kind of a little serendipitous that stuff happens. So nature definitely has to do its part. Welcome. Tip number 3, be in the moment. So you want to savor these moments. There's so much stuff going on, and you're really out there, and you want to experience capturing the scene. You don't want to just be buried in your viewfinder all the time. You want to look around, look past your viewfinder, and see what else is out there, so you're not missing something just to the left or the right or the background. So I've kind of trained my eye when I do look through my viewfinder to look at my background first. I look all around the scene, and then I come back to, say, the cute little otter there, because I want to control my background, see what's going on in the shot before I actually shoot it. Now it's kind of difficult when you're in Alaska on a workshop helping people, and you're on a boat and the otter's going like this and you're going like this at different times. And I am not by any means a wildlife photographer, so I was pretty impressed to even get this shot. So I have a 100 to 400 lens, which is effectively up to 800 on my camera, and everything is moving like this. So every other shot, I either have the sky or the water, and then I have a lot of blurry otters. They're very common up there. Lots of blurry otters up there. It's very common. So they are fuzzy. So this one wasn't blurry. It was pretty good, and he was looking at me too, so it was kind of cute. But taking all the angles, I didn't just shoot this. There was a bunch of them around. I isolated this little guy, but there's other ones kind of together and cute. So shoot all the different angles that you can. It's a little easier when you're not on a boat, but look around, shoot it wide, shoot it tight, shoot everything you can. Don't just be satisfied with your first shot, because all those blurry otters, looked 100% sharp on this 3-inch screen. They looked awesome on this. I'm like, oh yeah, it's great. And then I got home, I'm like, oh yeah, no, blurry, blurry, blurry. So there's a lot to be said for just don't take the one shot and say, I got it, I'm done. So enjoy the trip as well. Don't be stuck in your viewfinder. Put the camera down, watch what's going on. It was beautiful up there, and I would have missed it all if I was just behind the camera the whole time. Sometimes, and I shouldn't say this, but sometimes I don't even take my camera out. I'll just watch. If the light's not right and I don't have a shot, why shoot it? Just I'll enjoy the trip. Because it's about travel photography, so you are traveling, you're enjoying everything. You don't always have to be buried in there. So distractions, they come in many different forms. So you have internal and external distractions, road noise, people, chatter, especially in New York here. It's always a hustle and bustle. Things are moving, and you kind of have to filter the distractions out to get the shot you want and envision that shot. You know, Susie and I, my girlfriend, last night, were talking about this, and she's like, you know, this shot, you had this in your mind of how I wanted to do a long exposure. Everyone else just may see a car going by and not actually think about that. So I saw the building. I could have just taken a snapshot of the building up in Chicago and been done, but I wanted to do something a little bit different from that angle. So I played around with some long exposures and did some fun stuff. So you want to filter out those distractions so you can focus on creating something. Again, we all want to create. Pay attention to the action or the stillness in front of you. Something is always happening. It's very rare that nothing is happening out there. There's always something going on. So whether you're a street photographer or you're a wildlife photographer, you just kind of have to hunt. You have to kind of bunker down sometimes and wait for stuff to happen and evolve. And then compose and capture that. And again, don't just shoot one shot. Continue to shoot. It's not 24, it's not film where you have to conserve it. You have, I think they just came out with terabyte cards. You can shoot as long as your battery will last and then put another battery in. So there's no reason to stop shooting. Be ready. Huge one. Goes back to the planning as well, but be ready when you're actually there. The scene is always changing. Things like this happen for seconds sometimes, and if you're not ready and don't have your camera dialed in, then you can miss these opportunities. So these are much better than my macro shots with my Pentax that were all blurry, but these dragonflies landed for a split second. I happened to be standing there, clicked it. I got lucky on the focus on that, but I was prepared, my settings were right, my depth of field was the way I wanted, everything was ready to go. So when that did happen, when that moment happened, I could just click and hopefully capture the image. So the scene is always changing. Anticipate the possibilities of what's gonna happen. So that maybe a bee would land 2 seconds later. You never know what's gonna happen there. People are laughing, birds fly away, cheetahs will run. Stuff is always happening, and it's a fleeting moment sometimes, especially with people photography and wildlife photography. You really want to be ready and be on the shutter ready to go. This one's a hard one for me. I'm not a morning person. I've been getting better at it, but wake up early and go to sleep late. So that's when stuff is happening. Light is amazing early in the morning, late at night. Everything is just glorious, just glowing, and you have that golden hour. You want to hit that, and then you have your blue hour that goes into your nighttime shots. It's just, you want to kind of treat everything like being a fisherman. You want to go out there and be ready to go. So if you're shooting stars now, that's middle of the night. So now you have to stay up really, really late. A lot of the star shots we're shooting are midnight to 2 a.m., depending on, again, our tools. Whenever our tools are telling us the Milky Way is going to be in place, we want to be shooting that. And I'm going to say this one, and there's always rules to it, but avoid the harsh mid-afternoon light. Don't be afraid of it. Work with it, but that's, time maybe to go grab some lunch, but you can get great shots in the afternoon. Don't just say, oh, it's 12 o'clock, I'm done for the day. You can get great shots, you can get into shady areas, you can use a flash. So there's other ways to get amazing shots, but be a little bit aware of that it's going to be more harsh. So early birds will get the worm out there. So you've all heard that. It's very true with photography. We already spoke about the good light, but less people are generally out in the mornings that you can really go out and be somewhere. When we go up to like Bryce Canyon, there's 10 people shooting sunrise. You wait an hour later, there's 1,000 people at that same point. So, you know, we're out there with 10 people, and those 10 people all work together, and we all have our tripods, and we'll shoot sunrise, and then as soon as everyone gets breakfast, it'll get cluttered. This place, there's no hiding. So this is Antelope Canyon. There's about 1,000 people around that bend and about 500 people behind me. So we make it look serene, but we pay a lot of money to get everyone pushed back and take the photography tour. So some places you cannot avoid the crowds, even if you get up early. They're just putting thousands of people through these places. And all these places are getting more and more popular because of social media. Everyone can see everything and want to go to these places. So after Peter Lik did his famous photo, it's just insane here. You can hardly even get in the place. Why else to actually be up early? The weather is generally nicer, and this depends on the region you're in. So I live in Phoenix now. I used to live in New Jersey. I live in Phoenix, and the weather there can get into 120 degrees in the afternoon. So we shoot very early in the morning when it's like 100 degrees. So it's just, again, it's dependent on where you live. If you live in Seattle, you have to see what your weather's like there. So this picture is actually a quick stop in Alaska on our workshop up there. I saw the light just lit this whole field up, and we were driving trying to get somewhere, and I got on the radio and talked to the other car. I'm like, I'm stopping. They're like, why? I'm like, trust me, I'm stopping. And the light was just glowing, everything yellow. It actually looked even better than this probably a minute before that. So we kind of missed it, and it popped through again. But that light, again, early is always better. And in Arizona, at least, the clouds tend to kind of evaporate by afternoon or mid-morning, so you don't have any of the clouds that you have in other regions. So we try to get all that early in the morning when the sun is looking amazing. Tip number 5. Know your gear. So by raise of hands, how many people are really comfortable with their camera that they're using right now? Good, good. You want to know it inside and out. So don't buy your camera and go shoot like a wedding as your first thing. Go and practice. Shoot pencils in your office, shoot other stuff. Practice with it. Know every button, every control, every little nuance with it, so then you can do it in the dark, because sometimes you will have to actually use it in the dark. So learn your features, your functions, your dials, your buttons, and especially the limits of the camera. So the camera limits, I know, like I shoot this GX8 and I shot a full frame camera before. So if I need a very large image that I'm gonna print like this, I panoramic the shot. So I actually shot a ton of shots for this, and I stitched them all together in Lightroom. And I just know if I want more megapixels, that's what I do. So I know the limits of my cameras ISO-wise, where I can stop, and even with my other camera, I really know where it's gonna start to get muddy. It's kind of like your speedometer on your car. It goes up to like 100 or 200, but if you have like a Jeep Wrangler, it's probably gonna fall apart if you go that far. It's just not meant to go that fast. Same thing with your cameras. They put 300,000 ISO on them. It's not gonna look great. So really know where to stop. So other things on limitations of your camera, know your frame rates. So if you're shooting wildlife, which I was up in Alaska, I had to know where my camera or my card was gonna limit out. When I'm shooting concerts, same thing. I just know that I'm gonna eventually buffer out, so I learn how to shoot a little bit differently so I get the shots I'm looking for. I know the ISO performance, which we just spoke about, and my aperture ranges of where I'm gonna be, so I don't have problems with depth of field when I'm shooting stuff. So again, a lot of all of this being prepared is really knowing your gear ahead of time so you can really be ready. And I try to set stuff up when I get to a location. I'll set my camera up for something that's gonna be in the range where I'm gonna shoot. I'll usually throw it onto like a mode, like aperture priorities, or if I'm shooting something fast, shutter priority, so I'm ready for something to happen. And then I could always switch to manual once I get into the groove of knowing what I'm shooting. All right, muscle memory. So one thing you have to be is flexible with photography. If you're not flexible to change, you're gonna be disappointed quite a bit. You wanna adjust easily to the changing conditions, we were shooting this boat for quite a while, and the clouds kept coming and going, coming and going. So I'd get it to be like nice and vibrant, and then it would be all dull and boring. So so it would go in and out of the shadows, and I just kind of had to know to be able to switch my ISO or whatever I needed to change to be able to keep getting the shots at the continued exposure. In conditions like that, I'll sometimes bracket my images. I used to bracket all the time, and by bracket I mean take a light, a dark, and a middle shot, and then I can choose later to either combine it or not. I don't bracket as much unless it's really difficult conditions where I have a lot of really dark shadows and brights. But it's a good habit to get into if you're not sure. Don't miss the shot looking for buttons. So again, learn that camera. You don't want to be waiting here and then you had it on like 1.7 and this is in focus and nothing else is. So you really have to learn your cameras, read the manuals, watch videos on it so that you're ready to go. So when something happens, click, shoot. One of the things I love about the Lumix switch, it's just super easy. So I tested a ton of cameras out before I got this one. I love the touch screen on it. So I can focus with, like you do on your computer, trackpad, I can focus instantly like that while I'm looking at the scene and put it right on your eye and shoot without having to move joysticks around and everything else. It's just super easy to use. All my controls are right here. I can change almost everything from right on top of the camera. So, travel light. Just a show of hands, how many people are shooting with DSLRs, like full DSLRs? Okay, about half, a little bit more than half. So I was carrying around previously a Canon 5D Mark III, a 70-200 L lens, 2.8 IS, a 16-35 L lens, and then a 24-70, and sometimes a macro, in a huge backpack, and then hiking to like places like the Wave, which you can't even use a long lens, but I didn't want to leave it in my car to get stolen, so I'd carry it with me. So I'd hike out there with all of this gear and be exhausted when I got there. And I started to find out that I couldn't be creative after hiking 5 or to have a suit by 10 miles somewhere and carrying all this gear. I was really bogged down, and it's not fun. So I started to leave lenses at home, and then I'd be worried I was going to need the lens, so I was kind of stressed out, like, oh, I left that 70-200 in the car or at home, what happens if I need it? And then I started looking at the different options of shrinking stuff down. So I started shooting with one lens first. I would just carry my 24-70 around, and I would either pano it if I needed to pano it for something wider. Then I sold the 16-35, which I'm glad I did because they just came out with the version 3. And then I ended up switching out to get this camera, actually it was the GH4, which I don't have here, as a secondary backup. And I found I never used the DSLR anymore. So I ended up using the other camera all the time. And the smaller lenses, if you notice the lens on this for the DSLR people, it's like almost out where the grip is. Like the grip is there and the lens is there. So it's super, super light. I'll walk around with New York all day with this. All right, another thing to lose besides cameras, tripods. I hate tripods. I have really expensive tripods. They're great when I need to shoot stars, when I need to shoot fireworks, or anything else like that. But if I'm shooting in bright daylight, I don't want to be carrying it around. It's just, unless I'm going someplace that I'm going once in a lifetime place and I need perfect stability, I hate carrying it. I like to be fast and on the go. I think in New York you can't even use tripods on the street out here, so maybe a lot of you guys and girls don't use them, but I leave it a lot of times. So I'll leave it in my car, I'll leave it at the hotel, unless I really, really need it. And I got lighter tripods because of the smaller cameras, so I don't need the huge big ball heads anymore. I've shrunk that down. There's other alternatives out there. You can find them out in the store. So there's things like the beanbags, Gorilla Pods, Platypods, which are just little tiny devices you can put your camera on. If you don't want to spend the money, put it on a rock. You know how many times I've propped my lens up with, put a rock underneath on the edge of the Grand Canyon and hoped it didn't fall off? It's never fallen off yet, but I've done it and it works. And then you just put it on a 2-second timer, take the shot, let go of it, and it's perfectly still. So lose the tripod if you can. Lighten your pack. So when you're going out, again, we talked about lenses. Carry only the lenses you need. So right here, this is my 24 to 70, and this is my 70 to 200. If I'm going to shoot the wave, that one with the curved, with the cloud in it, I don't need this. Even though it's smaller than my Canon L lens I had, I still don't need it. Why would I bring it out? I'm gonna have like this much of the wave with my, so I'll only bring my wide, or I'll bring something wider than that. So don't carry it if you don't need it. We were talking, someone was here earlier talking with me, and they have a very wide range lens that will shoot from wide to very zoomed in. Get a lens like that for a walk around lens, so you don't have to worry about leaving something out. You'll have all the ranges from like 18 to something very far. But what you do want to bring is, and they're light, is extra batteries and extra cards. With all the big screens on everything, it's like your phone. It's always dead. By the time I got here today, I had like 20% left on my phone. I had to charge it when I got here. So you want to keep batteries, because they're going to, if you forget to turn the camera off, something like that, it's going to eat through the batteries. So I do keep those, but those fit right in my pockets. So I don't have to actually do a whole lot with them. I leave the battery chargers. If you pull my bag out later and pick it up, there's nothing in it. It's basically a laptop and those two lenses, so it weighs nothing. I left all my battery chargers today, my flash, extra cables, all the little gadgets I have for Facebook Live, and all the other non-essentials all got pulled out of the bag. There's literally nothing in it except a camera and a laptop. And if I wasn't speaking, I wouldn't have the laptop either. And sometimes I just leave the whole backpack altogether, and I just go like this. So this little thing is great. It's a spider holster. So I can walk around with this, and I don't even need the actual bag. I'll throw the batteries in my pocket, put this on, I can lock it down so no one steals it. It won't even come off, and I just walk around with that. So lose the bag if you can. Blending in, tip number 7. So if you're shooting wildlife or street photography, blend into your natural environment, whatever that may be. Neutral colors, if it's a wild nightlife kind of thing, fit into that crowd so you don't stand out. Camouflage, if you're shooting crazy eagles that are kind of staring there for 2 hours and not taking flight. I have probably 1,000 pictures of this eagle. He would not take off. He just would turn his head. I just shot it. I'm like, he's gonna take off any second now. He's gonna take, he did not, he was just enjoying the sun, just sitting there, and you know, that's all he did. He just stood there. So, but I was blended in, I was in the weeds there, and just kept shooting, and he never got spooked by me being there. So I see a lot of street photographers shooting smaller cameras now, and that's because they're less intimidating. So the first thing that would happen when I'd pick up my big camera with my L lens and shoot someone, they'd be like, all of a sudden be kind of scared and like, what are you shooting this for? What are you doing? They have lots of questions. Where if I pull this out, they don't even question it. They don't even know I'm shooting them. And I can actually go like this and keep it down here and shoot, and they won't even see. I can see my screen because it pops out and shoot. So for street photographers, they love smaller cameras. And the smaller lenses, going to the subways and stuff, they don't attract thieves as much. No one wants to steal something that's smaller because it doesn't have a perceived value, even though it is expensive. They don't think it's expensive, where they saw my other big lenses, and you see all these videos of people that figured out how to pop the lenses off when you're carrying your camera behind you. So blend in and be a part of the crowd. And again, it's not going to bog you down. You're going to be able to get in and out of places a lot quicker. You won't get questioned at ball games or other things. Stay still. This is hard if you have ADD. So stay still, let stuff happen. So like, I'm gonna probably go sit somewhere today and just let stuff evolve and happen around me. Let it kind of unfold. You don't always have to be chasing what's going on. You can just let the scene unfold and document it, shoot it, have a long lens, sit far away, sit in a park. There's so much cool stuff that's going on in New York here. This is actually from a photo walk that we're going to be doing. It's from Liberty State Park from New Jersey side shooting over, and the clouds are just beautiful that day, and I was just having fun shooting, but the clouds weren't there when I first got there. I had to wait a little while for this scene to evolve in front of me, and it was a nice day, so I didn't mind hanging out. So the best, most natural, candid images of people and animals are captured when the camera's kind of invisible. If you have a loud shutter, you can put your camera, your DSLRs onto like the muted sound for like weddings. Same thing for wildlife photography. If you're shooting people and they hear this click, they're gonna turn, they're gonna look. So you can put it onto quiet mode so you don't actually hear anything, have a smaller camera and kind of hang out, hunker down and get those shots, and they're not gonna pose, because people tend to pose when you point a camera at them, and then you get that, my nephew does that, does like that fake smile, and it's like, no, that's not what I was looking for. Do what you were doing 3 seconds ago. So you don't want them posing necessarily all the time. So cultures, if you're traveling abroad or different places, you have to kind of be sensitive for what the local culture expects from you. Some people don't like their pictures taken, but most people don't mind at all and actually like it. But you have to kind of get associated, introduce yourself, talk to people, smile, just get to know them maybe a little bit, as opposed to being the creepy photographer in the corner like shooting them. So you want to talk, learn to say hello in their own language. If you're going to Spain, learn to say hello in Spanish so that when you talk to them, that already breaks down a barrier. You smile, it gets you a million miles. You start smiling and people just really kind of calm down and shake their hand. Have a little chat, be respectful. Again, you kind of, if you can't speak the language, point at the camera. Can I take a picture of you? I used to do that. I used to shoot a lot of event photography and there was loud music behind me. I couldn't talk to people. All I had to do is point at them and go like this, and they knew what I meant. So I didn't need to actually talk to them. Ask permission sometimes. If it seems like something that you maybe shouldn't be shooting, ask them for permission, and you'd be surprised how many people will say yes and enjoy their picture being taken. And my friend Levi always sends pictures to them. So he'll actually give them a card, say, hey, email me, I'll send you that picture, and he'll write down who it is so he can send them a picture, and he'll actually, it's easy. These cameras, all the new cameras have Wi-Fi built in. So I can put this right to my phone. If I shoot it in JPEG, I can put it right to my phone, put their email in, send it right out to them while I'm standing there on the street. So super cool technology out there in the cameras. So in addition to your general research that we talked about at the very beginning, you want to search your local events. What events are going on, and understand how you can capture what's meaningful. So I shoot a lot of cowboys. I have a whole personal project of cowboy shoots that I do, and I take these really high-res files and make them look really muddy and ugly for the style I'm looking for. And I have to know when to find these events, when they're going to be in town, where they're going to be, and then find out. It's always at the worst time of day, so the lighting is always really harsh, and that's how I kind of got this style going, because they'd always be at like 11 to 3 in the afternoon. You have like high sun, and I started making them black and white, and then I started to do the sepia tones, and it really just, it worked for the style I was going for. And but if I don't know where and how to find these events, then I really can't go out and shoot the cowboys when they're there. They take off the whole summer because it's 120 degrees. So they just take off, they're not around, there's no Western events. I also look for events to avoid. When we go up to Arches to do our workshop, there's a week in April that's Jeep Week, and you cannot find a hotel. If you do, it's gonna be extremely expensive, and it seems like it'd be cool to be there, but you can't get food, you can't get anything. It's just a nightmare to be there. And you may want to avoid that if you're not a Jeeper and go the week before or the week after. Probably the week before, because it's probably trashed the week after. But you want to look at those events and find out when to stay away, because you don't want to really be there when you can't get a clear shot because there's Jeeps going over the mountain that you're trying to shoot. So may be cool if that's what you're capturing, but it may also wreck your shoot if you're not going for that. The local events will cause traffic jams sometimes. We were just up in Tahoe, and it was Oktoberfest. And I was actually going there for a wedding, not photography, and they told us you better leave an hour ahead of time. It's only about 8 minutes away, but it's going to be one-lane road all the way down to where the wedding is, and it snowed. So it was snowing on October 2nd, and there was Oktoberfest, and it causes these traffic jams. So they knew that ahead of time, and they warned everyone not to leave 8 minutes ahead of time because we were going to miss the wedding. And then other times they can create amazing opportunities. So I go places like Mardi Gras. because I'm going there for Mardi Gras to shoot the floats and the people and the experience. So sometimes you want to be in this awesome place. So again, you have to use your judgment and figure out what your goal is for the shoot. Do you just want to shoot New Orleans, like very misty and empty, or do you want to shoot it with thousands of people in the streets with floats? So that's your decision when you're planning. So tell a story. This was taken up in Chicago at the Out of Chicago photo conference that I was speaking at, and I was second shooting, helping out, and this was on perception, and it's the Windy City, so the photographer that was teaching was playing around and making it look like he was blowing away. But you want to tell the story. So you want to build the story, tell what's going on, what's happening, and that's our job as photographers, is really to create a story and convey something to someone else that's your viewer. Add your context. If you crop in too tight, if I was shooting my nephew here and cropped in right here, you would have no idea where he is, but I left some elements of the Statue of Liberty and other things in there so that it wasn't just in his backyard. If you're in front of the Eiffel Tower, make sure you leave that in there. Don't just say, okay, I'm gonna shoot a family photo and that's all you have. Leave context to family images, because a lot of times, whether we want to be or not, we're traveling with family. We may want to go off and shoot the great light, but you're with your family and you can't get away from that. So you have to work within shooting with family and kids and everything else. So you want to get some shots of them as well. Downside of being a photographer is we have no pictures of ourselves. So there's very little, I have very few pictures of myself out there. I could do it with my iPhone now. So also show scale. This is also up in Chicago. It's called the Bean. There is hundreds of people here at all times of the day. It's very difficult unless you were to stack all these images to get a clean picture of this bean, unless you go after they're closed and possibly get kicked out. So I did a time lapse of this and you just watch. There's never a moment where there's not a person in there. So I wanted to show scale so you'd know how big this actually was. So I actually took pictures to leave other people in there that I was really, and I did that with Monument Valley. I have ones, and everyone asked me why I don't Photoshop the truck out. The truck is like this big in the picture, and then you could see the big Monument Valley behind it. So it really shows the scale of how grand that is when you have this tiny little truck on the road, which you wouldn't have seen, but everyone sees that truck, and I get to tell them the story of why I didn't Photoshop that out, because it really shows the grandness of it. And I used to sit there for literally hours and hours and hours when I was younger, waiting for things like that to get out of the shot. I'd be like, oh, come on, why won't that person leave? I would sit there and just wait, and they'd walk around and hang out, and they'd always be in front of me. And now I kind of like to leave those human elements in there because it adds to the picture. It tells part of the story that I'm going for of what's going on. This is a tourist attraction. Everyone goes there. They walk inside. You can see a reflection in it. People doing selfies in front of it. It's just a big mirrored jelly bean. So capture the emotion. So if you are a people photographer, you want to capture what's going on, the essence of the scene. You want to capture whether they're happy, sad, depressed, winning, losing, relaxed, tense. You want to capture that emotion like in the firefighter here. So you really want to tell the story with what's going on, and you want to steer the viewer to think what you're conveying again. You're the writer here. You get to write what's being told. So eliminating everything that's not essential to the shot and just really getting in tight on this shot. All right, big one, tip number 9. Travel with other photographers if you can. So, other photographers get it. They get it. You guys get it. If I was to like slam the brakes on and jump out, you'd be jumping out with me because you knew what I saw or wanted to stop already, and we're like, why isn't he stopping? But family doesn't always get it. A friend of mine was telling me he went with his brother and I think his cousin on a trip, and they were non-photographers, and he would go to the spot and sit there, and they're like, oh, did you get the shot? He's like, no. And they're like, well, what did you shoot? He's like, nothing. Because why didn't you shoot anything? They've been there for like 3 hours. It's like, the light didn't happen. And they just like, what? Just shoot the picture, let's go. And he goes, what are you gonna do tomorrow? He goes, I'm gonna go back there and sit there again until it happens. And he went back the next day and didn't shoot anything. And then finally on the third day, he went there and like, it was like, ah, and light came through and lit up the rainbow over the waterfall, and he got the shot. But, you know, my mom would be like, okay, Grand Canyon, click, boom, got it, you know, and they captured what was in front of them. We're here to tell the story. Like, yes, the Grand Canyon shot that she takes is beautiful to her, but I'm looking for something a little bit different than what she would shoot. So it's just in my mind's eye, and I know what I'm looking for, and then you just have to wait for it. So other photographers, they'll get that, and they're going to want to stop just as much as you. Now, our 5-hour drive, when I go out to the conferences out from Arizona to Vegas, usually takes about 12 hours. We kind of joke that if there's clouds, we're going to totally be late for the conference, because we'll drive the 5 hours, and if there's beautiful clouds, we hit saguaro, we hit Joshua trees out there, we'll hit mountains. I don't think I have the picture in here, but I have a storm behind the Joshua trees, and we just, all right, everything stops, everyone gets out of the car, and we're out there shooting pictures of it, and all of a sudden it's 2 in the morning, but we get amazing shots. And they'll understand the patience that you need. You need patience. I did a whole talk here last time I was here on patience and consistency, and they're patient. They're going to want to be out here. This shot was from a workshop in Alaska, and it doesn't get dark there really. So we were actually there in June into July, and we would wake up at like 4 in the morning, and we go to sleep at like 1 in the morning. And I'd have to get like pulled out of my Lightroom class. She's like, my friend Lisa was like, all right, it's time to go. I'm like, why? I'm not done teaching Lightroom. She's like, it's like 12 midnight, and it's bright daylight out in the window behind her. So it kind of messes with you. But talk about early and late, like I said before, they just want to learn more. They want to shoot more. We would shoot until we were wiped out. Okay, onto the patience. So slowing down. This was kind of in between, and the light was perfect, and I kind of just jammed the brakes on and jumped out, and I just didn't want to take a snapshot. I wanted to kind of look around and shoot it. Minutes after this, though, all that fog lifted, and then on our ride back, this whole lake, everyone was telling me that it wasn't the same lake that we stopped on. I said, no, this is the same lake. I recognized it. It was just entirely different. It was all ripply. There was no reflection. There was no clouds. The light was terrible. But we had the patience to stop and wait for the light to happen. And it was just, I have a huge pano of this as well, and it was just amazing light, reflections, everything just kind of came together, and we just happened to be passing. So this wasn't planned. This was just luck, serendipity. The storm rolling in or rolling out is only about half the story. You want to tell the story after everything happens. So again, you don't always need to just shoot just a storm. The reflections in the road are amazing after, the fog that comes in, everything kind of evolves when you have different things happening with your weather. Sometimes those killer images come when the clouds lift. In this case, it didn't. It was actually with the clouds, but if I didn't wait around to see that, you'd never know that you could just jump back in. And I've seen that every morning. I'll wake up and I'll see these amazing sunrises. I'm like, I missed it again. I was working or something else, and other people went out and shot it. So you want to wait out some of these storms sometimes. Persistence and luck. So opportunity favors the prepared. We talked about planning, prepared, doing all your research, but some stuff just happens. So this was actually in Chicago. It was a setup shoot that I was doing, we had photographers here shooting, and I was shooting some B-roll photography, but anyone else walking by this when this was going on was just lucky that they were just jumping in, taking pictures, because this was just some randomness that was happening in the streets of Chicago. There was no rules. They could walk up and take a picture just like we were. And I had no flash on. Everyone else was shooting with flashes to the left of me. I was just kind of in the background. So luck is a huge part of what goes on, and you have to be ready to shoot. If you don't have luck, you have to sometimes rinse and repeat and start over and keep trying. So with this dress wasn't blowing in the wind. What was happening here, I think there was 8 or 10 of these little parts hanging off. Everyone had to bunch them up and throw them up in the air. So until they got the knack of throwing this up in the air, it was just kind of a ball that would go up and go clunk and fall down. You had to kind of get it up, and then it would have to float down slowly. So we had to rinse and repeat this many, many times to get the shot, and that could be with wildlife or anything else. When we were shooting moose, they weren't always looking at us. They were looking another one. You're shooting people. They're not always holding hands with the sun going down behind unless you have models. So there is a huge element of luck and serendipity that goes into all of this. But if you're not prepared, you won't be ready when it happens. All right, back up. So I run a big photo community called Photographers Adventure Club. We have 35,000 plus photographers in it. You would not believe the amount of times people post on there that they've lost all their pictures. There is no need for anyone to lose your pictures. They have 10 terabyte drives out there. You can go buy a 2 terabyte drive for $100 now. They're super cheap. You don't need to not back up anymore. So bad stuff happens. This bolt right here, this is actually like a couple weeks ago. This bolt right here hit a transformer and probably fried a bunch of computers. That's what that blue glow is. So it came down and it was glowing. I have a video of it. I've never seen it do this. It was like, and it just kept pulsing. It was really intense. I've usually just see it and it'll do a green or blue flash and then be done. But that's blowing up people's computers and hard drives and everything else they have plugged in. So this stuff happens, and it happens a lot. Thieves happen. A couple of years ago, people were breaking into houses. They'd steal a computer, but guess what? They would grab everything on there. Even though that hard drive's only $100, they don't care. They're taking it all. So I use external drives. Nothing is on this except this presentation, so it would have been sad if it got stolen before this, but if it gets stolen after this, none of my images are on here. They don't live here. They live on a hard drive. That hard drive, I have 2 hard drives, one on the desk, one that goes into a fireproof, waterproof safe, mainly because I was a firefighter in New Jersey, and guess what firefighters do? They put the fire out, but they put a lot of water in your house to get the fire out, so everything's floating then. So it goes into a fireproof, waterproof safe. I have a 3rd drive that goes to my studio, and then I have a 4th drive that goes into a safety deposit box. So if the house burns down, I can go get the studio one, and that's only maybe a couple weeks out, so I don't lose everything. I'll lose a few weeks worth of stuff. I also have things like SmugMug where I put pictures up, and I just signed up for Backblaze. I think it was Backblaze. That puts everything up. It's like $5 a month. And it's going to take like a year to upload all that stuff, but it's worth it. It's backing everything up in real time all the time. So once it gets the initial first time backup, it'll just fill in where it needs to. So look into cloud storage, look into other things to preserve your memories, because once they're gone, once that hard drive fries or dies or gets stolen, everything is gone. What's great now is, you have iCloud storage that all your pictures from your phone, if you lose this, you go to the Verizon store and they give you a new phone, all your stuff is on there magically. You have to do that yourself still with computers, so try to back everything up. I hate seeing those stories. All right, number 11, bonus tip. Always have fun. So if you're not having fun doing this, why are you doing it? You don't want to be stressed out about it. You want to go out there and you want to have a good time shooting your images. You really want to enjoy this. It's a hobby. And if you're doing it as work, you should still enjoy it even more. Again, you don't want to do something that you don't enjoy doing. It's an art form, so let it come from your heart and be passionate about it all the time. And express your unique viewpoint. A lot of these places I've gone to, again, millions of people have shot them. I want to create my own images there. I want to go create my own view. I want to shoot it a different way. I want a different sunset. I want to be able to do something, everyone sees this bear come down the hill in Alaska and has shot it. Everyone has a unique viewpoint on it. And he was just having fun. He was a really poor fisher bear. He couldn't catch a fish. He was just jumping around and he was like trying to catch a fish. He was diving in and he was just having a blast doing it. And then I have another picture I didn't put in here, but he just kind of got bored with it after a while, laid up on a rock for a while, rested, and then did it again. He was having a good time whether he was catching fish or not. So a lot of photography is like fishing or hunting or any of that, where you're not always catching, you're waiting, a lot of waiting, and again, enjoy that. So I'll leave you with a last quote from our friend Ansel Adams. You don't take a photograph, you make it. And our good friend Levi Sim always says this too, let's go make photographs. So you want to create that and you want to make that shot. And our tools really help us do that. The tools that we have are so much better than the tools we had before. And the cameras, like stuff like this, you couldn't do. You know, this had a lightning trigger on it because it was daytime lightning. My lightning, usually I don't use a lightning trigger, but it was daytime. I had a lightning trigger. I would have never been able to capture that without a lot of luck. I could bring up the shadows because the light was going down behind this. I was able to, in editing, bring up the shadows. I was able to capture all the colors and dynamic range. You couldn't do that back in the day. That shot would be a very, almost impossible, difficult shot to capture, but I made the shot, I made it my own. Is it reality? It was what I was seeing, so I created like that. I don't do a lot of surreal kind of photos. I like reality, but that's what I was seeing. And actually it looks a little darker here. It looks a little brighter on that one. But it was really, you know, my reality, and I made the photo. So don't be afraid to go out there and create amazing stuff and take amazing photos with the gear you have. You don't always need to change stuff up. Go out, use what you have, and get some amazing shots. Okay, well, I'll be up here if you guys want to grab a card or come up, talk to me, and chat. And I thank everyone for coming out. I appreciate it.
Whether you're a hobbyist or a professional, B&H has the answers to your questions. Experience a world of technology at our New York City Superstore. Connect with us online or give us a call. Our staff of experts is happy to help.